We imagine the modern world running on invisible networks and weightless data, quietly pulsing above our cities. Every civilization relies on a raw, physical resource to maintain its reach. Rome relied on grain. Britain relied on coal. Today, the essential resource is compute. Compute is not magic. It's electricity, heat, land, water, and time, compressed into capability. It requires massive tracts of land, thousands of gallons of cooling water, and generates immense radiating heat. This chart maps a collision. The upward curve is exponential AI demand, crossing the flat linear growth of the power grid. Projects like the $100 billion Stargate data center spike this demand further, pushing regional infrastructure past its breaking point. When digital demand mathematically outpaces the physical capacity to feed it, the systems that support our society do not merely slow down, they break. To understand the failure, we must follow a single, unpredictable AI inference spike as it moves from a server rack into the local grid. That digital request translates instantly into a physical draw on the electrical supply. These spikes are already triggering emergency operating thresholds in the Northern Virginia data center hub and across the Texas ERCOT system. A hyperscale data center can pull up to 2% of a state's total electricity. That volume of power must pass through local step-down substations like this one, creating severe physical bottlenecks in the equipment. As the strain moves up the chain, high-voltage transmission lines reach their thermal limits. The hardware is physically incapable of carrying the erratic load required by the latest AI clusters. When the load exceeds the hardware's heat tolerance, the result is immediate infrastructure failure. Transformers blow out and localized power grids collapse. The inherent volatility of current AI computing has turned digital demand into an active threat to the structural integrity of our power grids. Electricity is only the first failure point. All of that concentrated energy is converted into massive, unmanageable heat. Cooling these systems is a massive hydrological undertaking. A single 100-megawatt data center requires up to 5 million gallons of water every day to stay operational. This water draw is already depleting local supplies in Oregon and Utah. When data centers compete with agriculture and residents for the same receding water lines, the environmental strain becomes a crisis. If a heat wave overlaps with a cooling failure, the system enters thermal runaway. The heat builds faster than it can be removed, forcing an immediate, uncontrolled shutdown of the compute. This risk to national resources is so high that Ireland has implemented a total freeze on new data center permits to prevent a complete national utility collapse. This chart shows the sequence of a total collapse. Erratic compute demand drains the energy supply, which causes cooling to fail. This strains the water supply and buckles the grid, ultimately wiping out national capabilities in finance, logistics, and defense. Unmanaged AI growth has turned digital demand into a physical threat, capable of triggering a massive cascading grid failure. To prevent this collapse, we have to look at what happens when digital demand is stripped of its chaos and unpredictability. Instead of letting AI models pull power in random, violent spikes, a predictability engine can force these loads to behave in a strictly deterministic way. This diagram shows the shift in strategy. On the left is the jagged, spiking load curve that breaks the grid. On the right is the same compute volume, but engineered into a flat, stable, drift-free lattice. This horizontal line represents long-range invariance. Because the compute behaves exactly the same way over long periods, the demand never drifts into dangerous, unpredictable territory. When we overlay our grid capacity, we see the benefit of this stability. Because there are no spikes, the compute load stays below the threshold, allowing utility companies to perfectly anticipate and schedule the digital demand. This predictability transforms compute from a volatile surge into a manageable utility. It allows us to move away from massive, vulnerable server hubs and toward a system of distributed microdata centers and mega-region corridors that share the load without risking a blackout. The ability to stabilize digital demand is the prerequisite for modern sovereignty. It ensures that as our processing power grows, the physical infrastructure that supports our civilization remains intact.